Right, welcome back. This is Morning Cafe, and we're definitely discussing matters the Azimio anti-government protests. And with me on set, two sharp minds, so to speak, Professor Fred Ogola, policy and a political expert, and quite a lot on the heart. Good morning to you.
Morning, my brother Sandy.
It is yet another Monday, and I feel like at this point, you do know how Mondays will be.
I think Monday has always been that day we look forward to this very tough beginning of the week. But nowadays people are beginning Monday with wait and see.
So today's a wait and see.
Wait and see. I've seen some schools sending a message by saying they shall communicate around 8:30 or 9 o'clock whether kids are going to school or not. Others are going on as usual. And of course there are some parts of the town affected more than the others. So it's more of a wait and see day.
All right.
Yeah.
And a good morning to you, Professor Mashara Munene.
Good morning.
He speaks about today being a wait and see. Before we actually get to the thick of the conversation this morning, I'm pretty sure your mornings are always a whole different way. But then so far, Mondays are starting to pan out to be something else.
Well, the Mondays are Mondays. It's the beginning of the week. And anything can happen during the week.
All right.
So the expectation is that the week will be okay.
Okay.
Some weeks are different from others. Now we are being led to prepare for the unexpected on Mondays.
Okay.
Because some parts of the country, not all of them. So you have in some parts of Nairobi, there is anxiety.
Yeah.
In other parts, life is as usual, whatever that is.
Okay.
Some schools are I think they are the ones being told wait and see. Others are going on normal with their way. Some parts of the country are observing. It also happens to be the month of Ramadan. So our Muslim brothers and sisters have done their early morning food so that they can stay the whole day. So I mean, there are a lot of things that one can expect.
Okay.
It's raining, which is good, some parts of the country. Unfortunately, there is flooding. So some people's houses have been made not to be houses anymore because of cannot live in them the way they are, which raises the issue of planning. And this idea that people should not build on riverbanks because where they have flooded into houses, those houses are very near some river. They are riparian. It raises a lot of questions that what may happen. But I guess the main thing you're asking is not so much about the weather. It's about the political environment.
And speaking of political environment, all the way from Thursday to Saturday, there was a heated political environment in the Nyanza, basically. And many like to refer it to as the Kisii Nyanza and the Luo Nyanza. I prefer to call it Nyanza as it is. This is after President William Ruto visited, he started with Kisii and then, traversed to parts of Migori. And we'll later on be listening to a few sound bites of Kenya Kwanza leaders in Kisii County. I'll be informed when we do have those particular sound bites ready. But then I'm pretty sure, Prof. Ogola, you're following up on President William Ruto's visit to the Nyanza region, his tone, his messaging. President William Ruto, telling Azimio leader Raila Odinga that, hey, I supported you back then, so it is time for you to pay back the political support. I went to Hague, I went to ICC, I was charged for this particular hate crime charges because of you. Come on, 2027, give me a hand. Your thoughts on all this, the messaging, the timing even. For him to actually go to Nyanza. This comes after Monday's protest. Then you do have we see him. Was it something strategic?
Well, I mean, Ruto is a smart politician, so you can say that is part of his political strategy. First of all, going to Nyanza and being welcomed by those leaders was one thing to show that, well, it doesn't mean that actually he's lost Nyanza. Actually, he's trying to see if he can be able to gravitate. You remember the speech from the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, by saying that they have already liberated other regions from the one family. Now the next liberation is to liberate Luos from Raila Odinga. Of course, I'm not sure whether Luos want liberation from Raila Odinga. I think we just want liberation from the total political environment, not just from Raila Odinga. I think politicians have helped our hostage. Look, people should go to school today. Some people should go to work. Somebody won't open their business. I'm sure that this is not, it is a very unfortunate moment to be discussing about politics at this time. We should be discussing about development. And in fact, if you went to the whole speeches, it was all political. It was all about 2027. In fact, what I'm telling people, and this Kenyans, take it from me, this thing is not about Kenyans. This discussion about maandamano and the rest is about the next election. And it's about politics. It has nothing to do with us. And I'm hoping that the conversation can shift. Then now to the particular one you asked about the issue that he was saying, I went to The Hague for you and you should support me. I made you Prime Minister. And actually he made a statement by saying that he's the one who has made Raila Odinga have the highest office ever. That was the Prime Minister. Of course, you have to understand that people can say, I've been a politician. Someone can tell somebody that I made you MP. But as you are making the MP, they also made you something. Like if I choose you to be my campaign manager, I'm also lifting your profile. So I'm sure Ruto was riding. Yes. Actually, Ruto was riding on Raila's profile. Actually, that hanging on Raila's coat built his profile. And that, I'm saying Raila has paid him back by actually appointing him. For example, if you appoint me your running mate, if you're running for president, and I become your running mate, do you know you have already rewarded me because you brought me to the national platform? So by him working closer to Raila, by Raila giving space around him, there's something Raila made him that now has given him a chance to be president. If Raila had not brought him anywhere in the Pentagon, it could have been hard for him to be where he is now. So I'm sure these are just language. And secondly, which is very importantly, I don't think that saying I went to The Hague for you is something that someone can say he gave you. Because if Raila was supposed to go to The Hague, then Ruto instead went on his behalf, then he can say I went to The Hague for you. Going to The Hague could just believe that maybe how you did it, maybe Raila did not support it. To the people who know Raila has this heart of a feeling like, this is something very dangerous. For example, when the post-election violence was escalating, Raila went for a handshake, not because he wanted, but he went for a handshake because he just wanted us not to go down this route.
Right.
So I'm sure that we cannot surely say that there's something to pay back. But I think he was using this to whip emotions. And I think that the people of Nyanza need to hear more about development, because if he went there and told them, I brought this, I brought that, I'm doing this, I do that, I would be very willing to listen to that rather than politicking. In fact, Raila can politic until 2027. Ruto do not have that luxury. He has to deliver.
And on that note, before I come to you, Prof. Macharia, let us listen to what the Kenya Kwanza leaders were saying in Kisii on, I think it was on Friday, so that we actually get from the horses' mouths themselves and listen in. Kivu, tunaweza pata sauti ya Kivu. Soundbites by the Kenya Kwanza leaders, and just get to know what each and every one of them was actually, bashing the Azimio allied leaders.
Njaa haiko sana Kisii, kwa hivyo sufuria hatutabeba kichwani. mahubiri yakizidi, my governor, si watu badilika? Kwani tutakuwa tunahubiriwa na sisi roho zetu zinakuwa ngumu na tusifuate mwenendo ya watu wetu? Tubadilishe mwenendo ama tusibadilishe?
Mimi nataka watu wa Kisii County muelewe hivi. Nyamira tumeamua kuenda mbele. Hatuwezi fanya kitu moja miaka yote.
Mbali na mimi na huyu Rigiji, mulitupatia kura zenu. Mulipiga kura kwa wabunge, MCAs, senator, governor. Mimi nataka niwahakikishie ya kwamba hawa viongozi wenu wote ambao mliwachagua, sisi tuko tayari kufanya kazi na wao.
Hawa wote na hata kigogo mwingine Matiang'i, hawa wote wamekuwa vigogo kwa sababu walishirikiana na serikali na walitambua serikali. Agenda ya kutotambua serikali ina balaa.
Wale handshake brothers walitumia bwana Fred Matiang'i vibaya, kumwambia umize watu, atukane rais, aangaishe watu, na baadaye wakamwacha kwa mataa. Juzi alipojiletea shida bila kuletewa na mtu yeyote, kusema ati polisi wameenda kwake na hakuna mtu, ni akiona kivuli yake anaona polisi. Akapata shida kidogo, akipigia hiyo watu simu hawachukui. Mimi ndiye alinipigia simu.
There you have it. PC leaders together with Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and President William Ruto basically responding to the Azimio-One anti-government protests. And gentlemen, quite interesting sentiments by the leaders there. You do hear the Kisii leaders, even the Kisii governor Simbarati, saying that in Kisii you do have enough food, so we don't need soforias and all that to, protest against the whole cost of living. Even other leaders saying that we will work with the government. These are leaders that previously were in the Azimio-One coalition and basically faction. Prof. Munene, let us take a look at the time of this particular visit to Nyanza. Was it just a bare coincidence, or it was a whole strategy of matters political?
No, it was not coincidence. It was well calculated. And remember when he was sworn in, among the first things he did was to go to Migori or some other place, and to make inroads, and let the people know, I'm here, I'm your man, although he didn't give me much vote, but still your man. we can work together, that sort of thing. Systematically isolate Raila from what he thinks is his base. Now, politicians are interesting animals. They are just. And what we see in Kisii and people like Simbarati, he's a politician. And he wants his Kisii to do well. And doing well would imply working closely with the national government. Because whether one likes it or not, there is that symbiosis of working together. The last thing you want is to create animosities that might make it difficult to get things done. So this is politics. They are being very wise politically, and saying, okay.
Would you say, for example, sorry to cut you short, Migori Governor Ochilo Ayako, on I think on Friday or Saturday, when on Saturday actually, when President William Ruto was set to visit, his county, and he was saying, I don't have any information about this particular visit. So, and he said, you're welcome, but don't involve me in your matters. Do you think Ayako isn't as quote unquote politically smart?
Well, I think he's very smart. Maybe he wonders whether he'll be safer. Some politicians have been known to become unsafe after they receive the president. So, these are all part of the political game. And I think he would have wanted to be there. But some other forces maybe advised him that it was not in his interest to be there. At present, it is rough for some politicians to be seen or to be thought they might be going against the wishes of Raila. Okay? That's the reality. I think Ayako is saying, wait a minute, after all, Raila really campaigned for Ayako some time ago to make sure that he gets there.
Yeah.
And the last thing that Ayako wants now to be seen is to be going against what appears to be the wishes of the president. Let me also say something about the Kisii and the Luo as a people. They were lumped together in one province for political reasons. And this, Prof, whether you remember this or not. You are young, you could not have remembered.
Yes.
in
what if you call him young?
Yeah, we were all young at the time.
Yes.
But we read some of these things.
Okay.
What happened in 1962? We had the Second Lancaster Conference. And against the wishes of many people, they came up with a Majimbo document. Now, that Majimbo document, which was useless, and that's why it was trashed afterwards, it called for there to be provinces. And it was not clear how those provinces would be constructed. So the outcome of that was to create a commission to run around asking people, where do you want to be? Okay? So that's how these provinces were created there. So, in the lakes, what they used to call the Kavirondo, that area, the Luya, in theory, said they wanted nothing to do with the Luos. So they created a special province for the Luya called West, because they said the leaders, that's it. I don't think they were the Luyas, but the leaders said they wanted nothing to do with what? With the Luos because of Odinga and Mboya. And Odinga and Mboya were not very the favorites of the British at the time. So for the elite to sound good and respectable, they wanted nothing to do with what? With the Luos. So that's why they created a province for the Luyas called Western.
So basically a whole political...
It was a political game.
Okay.
The Kisii had no problem with the Luos. So that they were lumped together because they had no problem with what? With the Luos. And you come now to the mountain region. The same thing, yeah? The narrative was that the Kukes, that's what they call them.
Basically the Kikuyu community.
Yes,
yeah.
They were terrible people. Good people should have nothing to do with them. So you have what? The Embu, theoretically say the leaders. The Meru, the Kamba Aye, the Masai, they all say they want nothing to do with the Kikuyus. Why? Because of the Mau Mau War. And that's why they crafted something small, they crafted a little something and say, now that's where you belong. Yeah?
But then, so how are this basically looking at in the past, how all these particular formations of the provinces and all that, how the politics was played back in the day, how is it being reflected right now?
Well, it's still there because the mentality that was planted at the time is still with us. So we are talking about Nyanza as a Luo thing, yeah? When in reality, you have the Kisii there, you have the Kuria, but the attitude and that was entrenched at the time, these provinces refer to ethnic compositions, but only two of them were ethnically Western and Central. They are the only two provinces that were ethnically constructed by the colonialists for their own purposes. The others, the Rift Valley, you find all sorts of people there. Eastern, the same thing, yeah? The coast, the same thing. Nairobi. See, that construct was implanted in people's minds such that they even believe that the little zone called Central is for the Kikuyu zone there. And that Nyanza is for what? For the Luo zone, and the rest don't count.
Let me to now interact with Prof. Ogola on this. Still on the same, Nyanza region. And for a long time, the Nyanza region has been known to be the political bedrock of Raila Odinga. In Monday's protests, majorly we did see, the protests in Nairobi and Kisumu. As much as Raila had called for, the mass action in Nairobi, basically. But then, does this mean that, Raila is losing other strongholds in other parts of the country? Because we did see majorly in Nairobi and Kisumu. What do you think? Yeah,
of course, unfortunately, even when you hear the run-up to this mass maandamano, the one that took place last week, there's been something profiling that it is the Luos who are throwing stones, it is a Luo maandamano, something like that. And also, if you connect it to the question you ask about the leaders from Luo Nyanza, I wouldn't want this to look like a tribal profiling of Luos. And in fact, those leaders who are coming from Nyanza, the elected leaders, it should not be about Raila here. And if at all it's about Raila versus the rest of the country, then that is not the way to do. The question people should be asking, and I like what Honorable Nyamita said, that we will work with the president so long as our conscience is clear. Yeah. So it's about your conscience. Do you think this is a good cause to do? Let's not go into this is going to be the Kalenjin versus the Luos, or the Luos versus the rest of the country. No. Maandamano is bad for everybody. In fact, if I would like to say is that the leaders from Luo Nyanza need to start thinking differently. And in fact, even if you say that Ochilo Ayako was campaigned for Raila, but they should have a different conversation by asking and say, well, what do they really want? Do they want development? And can they only get this development through working when they are still with Raila? And can they get this development working with Ruto? According to me, devolution was supposed to achieve something that could be able to give these people freedom. Like if you are a governor, once this bill is signed, everybody allocated money for your county. We should not be, you support or oppose a maandamano based on whether you are in Azimio or you want with the Kenya funds. Let's go with our conscience. Maandamano is bad. In fact, Stanley, we should not do it. In fact, because we know that there will be loss of life, loss of property. I'm a Luo myself. I should be supporting Raila Odinga, but me, I'm not supporting Raila Odinga. Me, I'm just looking at the issue, maandamano or not. It is bad. Why are we having it? You look at Kenya Kwanza has brought these things to themselves. You understand me? Why I'm saying so? First, the key institutions that should stop from this happening have failed. Parliament was meeting. They never deliberated on this issue of maandamano clearly. They were supposed to, if those trust that Parliament can help bring some leadership here, it could have worked. Judiciary lost that social license, because if I do for you a trust barometer, you'll see judiciary scoring very low, Parliament will score very low, IBC will score very low, religious leaders scoring very low. So what I'm trying to say is that key institutions have lost leadership. Now we are going to our tribe cocoon. The moment we begin going to our tribal cocoon, we are actually killing this nation. Right. In fact, the discussion should be whether it is right or wrong to go for maandamano, not whether this tribe, all those leaders should support Ruto, Raila. We should be talking about what is the position of Parliament, what's the position of judiciary. For example, if you look at the comments from Koome, that is not a comment from an inspector of police. Actually, what I'm trying to say is that let us detribalize this, let us depersonalize it, let us institutionalize it, and let us now reason with decorum. And focus on the issue. What is the issue? Not people, and not a tribe, not a region. Let me introduce our third guest this particular morning. Welcome, and very good morning to you, Kidi, a policy expert.
Yes.
You're well this morning?
Yeah, I'm very well. It's good to see you this morning and to see our viewers again.
Right. As we started, I was trying to see how your other Mondays are usually comparing to this one, and how
as a country will be moving forward on our mandates. I don't know your expectations, even as you chip into what we're discussing this particular morning, President William Ruto's visit to the Nyanza region. And on the stage, we were looking at some particular sound bites earlier on, and on the stage were leaders from the Kisii region, saying that we will actually support President William Ruto and the Kenya Kwanza government for matters, development. These are leaders who were previously allied to the Azimio faction and followed Azimio leader Raila Odinga. Will you say that, Raila Odinga is losing grip on his political strongholds in the Nyanza region, basically, and even countrywide?
Thank you very much once again. I wouldn't call it loss of grip on the part of Raila Odinga, but I would call it an idea whose time has come. Why do I call it an idea whose time has come? That today you realize that 6 months after elections, we are once again relitigating the question on who was elected in the office of the president. And for all intent and purposes, it amounts, for lack of a better word, to what I would call political mischief. Why do I call it political mischief? Because if not for the fact that that matter had been sufficiently litigated and settled, we are again being introduced to a new fact, to something new, to a new idea, that there is the high cost of living, but then the best way to solve it is on the streets. But then, this is a beaten path. We have witnessed how maandamano unfolds, and you will agree that after the Constitution of Kenya 2010, after the creation of the new institutions, especially when you look at Chapter 15 commissions, you would for a moment want to encourage leaders to give these institutions a chance, at least at the first step, to resolve these issues. So that it is only in instances when these institutions are unable to deliver that mandate, then say they are captured, that is when you would resort to the streets. The high cost of living, for instance. One of the contributing factors to the high cost of living is the government target on inflation. So naturally, what the parliament should have done, and say the Azimio team, they should have summoned the CS Treasury and asked him to explain to them why the government target on inflation is standing at 7.5%, and say why it is not 0, why it is not 1%, right? So that when you then deny this institution, and the political mobilization in our country for a long time, as Professor was indicating, Professor Macharia Munene, is that it has been tribal for some time. So that leaders from what you would call Azimio strongholds are for a moment looking at the body language of their leader and now trying to make sense of what that leader wants, instead of coming out and saying that, wait a minute, I think that this is the safest route for us to take, one, as a country, and secondly, as people who claim to have supporters. And let me say this, why I think that path of Mandamano is wrong.
Okay.
Let me first say from the outset that it is a constitutional right. But even before it is a constitutional right, it is an inherent right that is given to all of us to disagree with the state. It is called the right to dissent. It is not it is not a right that is, attained out of the benevolence of the state. But why do I think that it is wrong in the here and now? We have been told that there is the disruption of the global supply chain. In the day and age of the war in Ukraine, the global pandemic, the supply shocks, and what have you. So for instance, if you talk about the high cost of living, you look at the consumer price index. If you look at the consumer price index, there are two things that push up that cost of living. There is the fuel or petroleum products. Then the second one is food items. If you look at food items, there is the edible oils. Among the edible oils, look at where raw material is gotten. It comes from Malaysia. And when you come to grains or wheat products, it was coming from Ukraine. There was a moratorium from part of Malaysia on their export, so we have not been getting it. So up to last year, when Azimio was still in power, there was a time when Kappa Oils had to close down momentarily because they were unable to get that raw material.
So it's basically too early for the Azimio coalition to be addressing such issues, basically, asking the Kenya Kwanza government to reduce the cost of living. That's basically.
I'm sorry that I may have given too much facts.
Okay.
But almost losing my viewer.
Okay.
But the thing is that maandamano, when we have seen how it happens, in Migori, for instance, where I come from, when it was done, there was massive destruction of property, and not property of the high and the mighty. It is the property of the small businessmen and women. Okay. So that when that happens, over and above that loss of property, there is also the disruption of the local supply chain. Okay. So when people do not have even what to eat, the question is, for whom are we holding these demonstrations? Thank you.
And now the fact that you mentioned you're from Migori, yes. I'd like to have your insights on this before we actually get to matters, the body language of what was in the kind of speeches that were there. Yes. In Migori, yes. President William Ruto, quote unquote, snubbed major bits of that particular county, and focused, I think it was on the southern bit?
South Nyanza.
Yeah, on the whole south, a part of the county.
Yes.
This even as your governor, yes. Saying that I don't have really any information about this visit. Yes. What do you read into this?
I will again once say that there was political mischief on part of the governor. Why is it that you see, earlier on when the president came to Nyanza, he visited Homa Bay, Kisumu, and Siaya. Yeah. My governor, in infinite wisdom or lack of it, left his county of Migori, went to Homa Bay to receive the president, was at Kisumu State Lodge, was in Siaya with Governor Orengo, and it was all good.
In his defense, he said that he was welcomed. Basically, he was invited.
Stanley, add the fact that Raila has told elected leaders to meet the president at that time.
Yes.
This time he didn't.
Yes. So I think that we need a leadership that is honest, a leadership that is able to, for a moment, put aside issues of political expediencies for what is good and right. It is good, the Bible says that it is good when brothers come together. And I would dare add that how much more better would it be if leaders come together in the interest of the nation.
Okay.
For a county that received a president by throwing shoes at him in 2014, I think it is a marked improvement. And for people who come from that side of the world, I think that we have taken a keen notice of how the president is keen to, engage us differently this time round. There has always been a notion or a pattern where when politicians, especially those who occupy the power instruments of the state, disagree with the leaders of our region, they have always resorted to bastardizing our people. And we have seen how the president has made deliberate efforts to embrace our people in spite of the existing political impasse between him and the president, and the prime minister. When he came to Homa Bay, Kisumu, and Siaya, Professor, let me say this.
Just a point to correct there.
Yes.
Remember that President Ruto is in a very different environment from the other presidents, because there is the question about his legitimacy in the election, and even people are wondering actually where did he get these votes from.
Yes.
And maybe that's why he needs some support.
Yes.
So he's some desperate support, if you like. Because you see, for example, the ones who won clearly, like Kibaki, he just needed not to go and seduce anybody because it was clear. The one of Uhuru in the first term, the same thing. Now, if you look at this situation whereby William Ruto's legitimacy is being questioned, when someone goes to the media and says, I don't recognize you as a president, someone with the 6.9 votes, it is not a joke. That's why he has to look for how to do it. So it is a different context altogether. Texts must be put into a context.
True.
If not, then they just mean nothing.
But then let me ask them to add that you know, the question of legitimacy has been raised, and I am glad that Professor is raising it. Personally, as someone who has had a chance to be in this room, I will only entertain the question of the president's legitimacy to the extent that that conversation is academic. Why would I entertain it only for its academic value? That there is a reason why elections are called. Elections are called so that a new administration gets its mandate. For in these elections, it must be remembered that the Prime Minister and the Azimio team was almost what you would call the establishment candidate. They had what you would call naturally in African elections, you know, the system. So that for the deputy president, who was then deemed an outsider, to outfox and outsprint them in the ballot, I mean, you want to give it to him that he won that election fair and square.
Right.
Secondly, remember that there are two institutions that have pronounced themselves on this matter. There is a question of the IEBC, and then there's a question of the Supreme Court that have all come into concurrence that the president won. Why do I want to entertain this only for its academic value? That Kenya has a voting age population of 27 million people. Out of the 27 million people, the percentage that, the section that gave the president a direct mandate is 7.1. So it means there is about 17 million people who have not given the president the direct mandate.
Okay. But
then it would also amount to political mischief, for lack of a better word, to say that now everyone else who did not vote directly for the president, that voted for the other side.
That raises the whole question of, even as I get to you, Prof, yes. That raises the whole question of, and it is one particular question I was asking Kenyans this particular morning.
Yes.
The issues raised by Azimio leader Raila Odinga and his allies, one including the, reducing cost of living and also opening the servers, which you also, alluding to basically, the legitimacy of
yes.
which Azimio wants the servers to be open so that they can actually, confirm these are the results and you actually won and,
yes.
We actually lost. Prof, when you look at number one, the kind of body language and the tone that was used by, President William Ruto and his deputy in the Nyanza, tour. And do you think, basically what do you read into the tone before we actually come into, assessing, do these issues, do Kenyans relate to these issues?
Well, I think the two gentlemen want acceptance. Okay?
That's President Ruto and...
yes, yeah, they're the two gentlemen. They go together. Have you noticed that they're beginning to dress almost the same way? The Uhuru and Ruto used to dress in the initial days. The same tie. But they are working very hard to get acceptance where they were not accepted in general. And they go out of their way to make their case. And they are received well in some places. Politely, let's say they are received politely. And in some areas, enthusiastically, which is a plus for them. But that is not their problem. Their problem is somebody called Raila Odinga. That's their problem. As been raised, you have somebody who has some influence questioning the legitimacy of his presidency. And you cannot ignore that. Whether it has merits or not is another matter. Now, this man raising questions of legitimacy, it's not the first time he has done that. It's part of his DNA. He loses, he raises question of legitimacy. It's not valid,
Okay.
And then give him credit. The man is very clever politically. He knows how to rebound coming from, and to look for relevance, to be seen to have something. I think what has happened in the last 2 months, he has found relevance, which was not there 2 months ago. And because he has found relevance, he is really...
South Africa's
I don't know what he and Malema discussed. We don't know whether they even met, but it was too much of a coincidence for them to call for a demonstration on the same day.
Yeah.
It was just a coincidence. I think maybe Raila copied from Malema, I don't know. But because I think Malema called for this much earlier, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
So Raila, being the political genius that he is, has found relevance. He's looking for relevance, and he's found it through these things. Is he correct? Not necessarily. And I agree with my good friends here. Maandamano is not good. One, it increases underdevelopment. Right now we have a country going through underdevelopment because there is no productivity. When you have those things, businesses go haywire. Not to mention the thugs who go throwing stones. You know, those sort of things. But even if nobody was throwing any stones, and then you have shops closing and people not working, that is underdevelopment. And it's not going to help very much. So for President Ruto, he was, as far as I'm concerned, properly elected.
Yes.
The IBC, the Supreme Court, those are the only two legitimate organs of deciding the election in this country. Now, was it close? Yes, it was extremely close. Could have gone either way. And I remember sometimes I was telling people, whichever side you are, prepare, just in case the other side wins. Because it was that close. Could have gone either way. And when the results were out, we had a lot of excuses why it went that way. And some agents did not show up, or they were not paid, or some people refused to turn up. A lot of excuses, but it was very close.
You think Kenyans want to hear all about matters, the servers, IBC, or
no? I don't think.
And also speaking on how the messaging of Azimio's demands. How will you look at it? No. Azimio's demands to Kenya Kwanza?
No, I think the issue of opening servers is a non-issue. It's a non-issue. The issue of things going haywire is an issue, because clearly we have skyrocketing prices. That's affecting everybody. Yeah. It's got nothing to do with the elections. We have expenditures which are not explainable. Yeah? This is what is annoying people. It's not so much whether Ruto won. He won the election. End of the story. But some statements coming from some people in Kenya Kwanza are very annoying. They are very discouraging. Such that people wonder what's going on here. So we are told cut on the costs. And then what do we see? Bloated 50 or more assistant ministers, because that's what they are. Yes, assistant ministers. Do you need 50 of them? Highly bloated?
Good question.
So let me finish that. Because I'm saying the optics, the messages that the Ruto government has been sending to the public is discouraging, and that's why they're losing that part. Not a question of whether they were elected. They were elected.
Right.
But what they have been doing since then is discouraging.
Right.
And people are not happy.
Prof, allow me to take a short break. Well, now when we come back, I want us to dig deeper into what will be happening today. We'll be, taking a look at what will, be happening on ground, giving you live updates for the Azimio-One Kenya anti-government protests. Will it be, a replica of last Monday's protests? What are we to actually expect? This is Morning Cafe. We'll be right back to discuss the weekly maandamanos by Azimio-One Kenya.
TV 47, the home of untold stories. home of untold stories.
Right, welcome back. This is Morning Cafe, the third, basically, segment about 4 minutes past 8 a.m. You're watching Morning Cafe, and I do have the sharpest of minds here to discuss matters, the Azimio-One Kenya anti-government protests, and basically how Kenya Kwanza leaders and even the police are actually reacting to it. And I can start with you, Prof, even as you chip into the previous conversations you were having earlier before the break. And I'd start with, what do you think is the end game for Raila Odinga, for the Azimio allies, for this particular, protests? Because at the end of the day, we won't have this protest by, say, till December. Frankly speaking, it will reach a time that they'll have to be called off. So at the end of the day, what is the end game here?
Now, the end game here is that I think that I was on this set before, and actually we were with the professor here when we began. I was telling the professor that we have ruled out Raila, that he's done 4 times and he comes back. And I told the professor that he will be back. How he'll come back, me, I don't know. Because I'm a young man, and sometimes we have very short, let's say, experience by saying, now Raila is done. He's fine back. And let me tell you what I'm trying to say is the end game. And if you look at what I said the other, what I actually believe that at the moment, William Ruto has got legal license to operate. He's in State House, so he rules State House. Raila had nothing to rule until he started Mandamano. Now he rules the street. Now because he rules the street feeds State House. So Ruto has no option but to come back, because you cannot stay in State House hungry. Because, for example, last Monday, Sakaja collects parking fees, all other fees in town. He lost around 6 billion. You understand? Kisumu, some money was lost. Today, if we do Mandamano is done, the same thing will happen. So Sakaja will come and tell William Ruto, my county has been given a target by Treasury to collect certain revenue to help build onto the budget. I can't collect them, and therefore I fall short of target. But secondly, I can't actually function. Like now, can Sakaja go and have his meeting in the city hall? Me, I don't know. You can answer that question. So even the people who are selling their wares, the second-hand clothes sellers, these mamambogas, these small business people that live hand to mouth, if they sell nothing today, they're sleeping hungry tonight. Those people get tired and tell Ruto that it's over. So before Raila went to Mandamano, it was his problem. Now that he has gone to the street and got some people, now it is no longer Raila's problem, it's everybody's problem. Now that's the end game. Make Ruto feel that State House is not nice. In fact, there is no need of going to State House to take those by petition. Petition is on the street. That's why it's powerful. State House, you'll be bombed for nothing. Just go to the street, captivate. That's the end game. By the way, Stanley may not say that is not what I intend. I'm just telling that is the end game. He will win that way. He is won. Actually, I can tell you at the moment that Raila is controlling State House. Whatever is happening at the moment there, every discussion, all meetings, you saw the meeting between the Rigathi Gachagua and all the security officials, anything Gami is doing is around how to manage Raila, and that's what he's enjoying. So that's his end game.
And speaking of matters, Raila enjoying this, for how long will he have to enjoy this? Will he keep up the momentum? And I want to start to shift and go back to 2018.
Yes.
Raila did the same thing in 2018, and he called for the tear gas Monday. Yes. And, every time on the streets, yes, because of, matters, the legitimacy of the elections. Yes. Looking back in 2018, yes, right now, will he keep up the momentum?
First, before I respond to that question, let me respond to something that Professor Ogola said earlier. When he spoke about the social mandate, I wanted to add onto it by saying that the fact that the election was a close call, that the difference between the president and the prime minister, former prime minister, was so razor thin, does not deny the president the legitimacy. Secondly, it is known world over, especially in democracies, that when governments come to power, and especially in moments of adversity, especially economic adversity, they quickly lose their approval rating because people want quick fixes, they want their questions of bread and butter answered in the here and now. Sometimes the policies that the government is going to put in place may take some time before they bear fruit. If you read Barack Obama's book, A Promised Land, he says that when he comes in 2009, by the time they are going to the midterm elections in 2010, the measures that he put in place to rescue the economy had still not begun being felt, in the pockets of the voters. And so as a result, the Democratic Party was given a thorough beating, what you would call kichapo cha mbwa. The fact that by the time we were going to the elections, there was a general, anxious economic moment, not only in Kenya but globally, also means that we have a restive population. And therefore, with the restive population, the president was walking on a tightrope. But as Professor Bola said, that the president needed to increase his social license, I think that in part informed the need to appoint the other CSS and balloon the number so that more people are brought in to make it look like, oh, we are also represented, even especially areas that were hitherto did not get allocation in the CSS and the PSS. But then, as the professor is saying, that what the message does it send to a reasonable man in the streets? The reasonable man in the streets would then say that when the economy is this bad, and then again you have this bloated cabinet, what does it mean in terms of opportunity cost? So people are beginning to ask, what could we have done with that money in attempt to make the life better for the ordinary person in the streets? Now back to your question, that what is the end game for Raila?
And now will he actually sustain that particular...
But before you go, I want to just make a comment.
Yes, sir.
This is dangerous. I did not say that President William Ruto has no legitimacy to be president.
Okay.
I say that one he has.
Okay.
And I said it takes more than legal license to operate as a president. And let me give an example. Yes. You can be a company, because I can be a company, then you can get a contract from the government to drill oil in Turkana, which is a legal license to run business in Turkana. But if the people of Turkana believe that you are there against their interests, you cannot drill oil. They will make the place impossible. And that's what social license to operate is. Even for you, if you begin a business in the middle of Kibera, and people of Kibera believe that you are there to destroy their businesses, you will get a license from KRA, you will get a license from control of, you will get all the licenses on paper, but on the ground you can't. So I'm trying to say, even by your very point of this social license to operate, people are believing that, you talk about the cost of living, people had high expectation. Then the president lied a lot of things to take him to status by saying a lower cost of living, unga will be 100 shillings, this will be light. And people are now saying, if you lied on your way to presidency, it's like I cheated my wife to marry her. I'm a billionaire, I'm this and this. Then she comes home and finds that this I was talking about is not there. I have lost social legitimacy.
There used to be a fellow called Daniel Moy.
Yes.
He was a very good politician.
Yeah.
And he used because of what he has just said. Moy used to say, wakati unatongoza msichana, unaahidi kila kitu, hata meli na ndege. Akikubali mambo kusha. So it is in the political nature of politicians. They will say things they know they cannot fulfill because they are trying to get that. Once they are there, then they have to come to the reality. Now, how do you convince the people you told what you are going to do that it is not possible?
Is it possible to have, even as you also chip in, to have the Monday, Thursday weekly demos? Is it possible at this time of...
for Raila,
to have...
For Raila, it makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
As a person. Gives him relevance. And people have to talk about him. Okay? It doesn't make sense for the country, no. For Raila, in fact, it has been very good for Raila. One, it has consolidated his position as the leader of something called opposition, whatever that is. We no longer hear about Kalonzo, do you? Well, Kalonzo says he's now a follower of what? Something like that. Uhuru has said his man is who?
Raila.
Is Raila. Martha, they are all Raila's people. So he has consolidated that position. That's very good for him.
Okay.
So those people who are talking about 2027 better keep quiet, because mwenyewe yuko.
But then till when? Till when? Because during the weekend...
Let me finish.
Okay.
So he has consolidated that part.
Okay.
Second, he has put Ruto in a fix, in a dilemma.
Okay.
Because that's why we are talking about this. When keeps on saying, now Ruto is the one in a fix, the one being challenged to do something. To do something to deal with this manufactured crisis. Okay? Now, if he does not do anything, he loses. Because he's in charge. How can you let things go by that, you know? So he has to do something. What he does, I don't know. But he has to be seen to do something to show that he's in control. Otherwise, he will lose that perception that he's in control. I think that's what Professor was saying, that the Raila is running things. Because the perception is that Ruto has lost it. He's not in control. So he has to do something to restore the image of being in control. What he does, I don't know. If he does not do that, he loses it. The alternative is to do something. What he does, I don't know. Now, if he does, he should also be ready for roughness. And apart from roughness in terms of engagement, he should be ready to be blamed for everything and anything, whether he has done it or not. So he has those choices: either do nothing and lose everything, or do something and be blamed.
So basically working
and also something to add, just a minute. You see, another question which I think that needs to be brought here.
Yes, sir.
When Raila says that the cost of living is high, the economy is mismanaged, the other conversation which also I'm sure that needs to be asked by fellow Kenyans is that, but what's the option? If Azimio was in power, could they solve this issue?
Yes.
Do Kenyans perceive they can't do it? And what people are saying that, like you said before, they lost an election that was theirs to win.
Yes.
So people are saying, if you could not just make yourself win an election,
yes,
can you run cost of living? These are also legitimate questions we're asking. In fact, Professor, what you say here is interesting, because if Raila is taking us through this, and we have a feeling that even if he gets government, he can't solve our problem, then why are we going through this in the first place?
Right.
And I'm sure that's a very important question that they have to ask and answer. Me, I don't know the answer. I don't want to take side, because for me, as I said, for me, I'm not a political animal. I'm not in Azimio. I'm not in Kenya Kwanza. I'm just in civil society. I'm just concerned about what is Solomonic. Railanomics, Rutonomics. Solomonic is that what is good for Kenya is what is good for all of us.
Kidi, allow me to protect your time right now before Ogola again, such as it once more. Again, still on the same. During the weekend, President William Ruto was, urging Azimio leader Raila Odinga and telling him, I've helped you, be who you are. Why not 2027? Also vote for me around this time. He's been in government right now less than 7 months. Why are we having such kind of discussions for 2027 at this time? And still on the whole, Raila keeping up the momentum. Is he gearing up also for 2027, or this is just is he focusing on posterity measures?
Thank you for protecting me against my very senior brothers. It is what happens when David appears jointly with giants. Thank you for the question. One, I think that I would want to call it a plea by the president was legitimate. The plea by the president was legitimate because the question of ascendancy to the high office is properly delineated in the Constitution, how that happens. And you know, anytime you acquire power, contrary to how it is stipulated in the Constitution, then such maneuvers are null and void, and I will dare add ab initio. So when the president is pleading with his elder brother, the prime minister, that we have worked together jointly before. So it is calls that I think some of us have made before, that the president and the prime minister, you know, are the same, different sides of the same coin. And I do not think that even the, you know, existing political issues that are still unresolved, if any, should not be resolved in the streets. Because I think it should be easier for the president and the prime minister, you know, to have what the Swahili would call mkutano wa faragha. A gentleman, you know, conversation, and agree that these are the issues bedeviling our country, and we can have a bipartisan approach to solving them.
We'll actually get
but
to
let
that.
me also say this.
We'll actually get
but
to
let
that
me answer your
and
question.
discuss more on the calls for dialogue later on. But
yes.
then you can continue.
So let me answer your question. That the president is a kinsman. For the people coming from the side of the world where I come from, we remember the days when he stood very firmly in defense of the win of Raila Amolo Odinga. And contrary to what Kioni is doing now, of, you know, floating figures that he cannot back up, William Ruto at Remain 207 would say that there is a problem in Juja constituency. And he would table what was on the ground in Form 16A, and then he would table the discrepancy. This time round, we are told that we had votes in central Kenya, but then the same people who voted for us that are so violent that they didn't give us Form 34A. So the question is, so I mean, now that the president came to our backyard, I think that when he stood with us in 2007, part of why it was easier to strike the National Accord and Reconciliation Act was because of the calls of no Raila, no peace. And the sections where the calls for no Raila, no peace were properly staged were in parts of the areas where President Ruto was coming from. So he stood with Raila as a kinsman, I mean, as a kama jirani. So now that the president has what my senior calls the legal license, I think it is only prudent and just, especially for the prime minister and for this country, that one, let him join his brother, because if anything, it means the dream we had in 2007 has finally been realized. If you read the book of Habakkuk, the Bible says that though the vision may tarry, but surely it will come to pass. For some of us, we think that the vision we had in 2007 has come to pass through William Ruto. So it is incumbent upon the prime minister to help his young brother William Ruto to govern this country and in the interest of this country. Thank you.
Right, Prof, I can see you laughing. Later on, we'll actually be listening to a few soundbites by Azimio leader Raila Odinga speaking on, the Maandamano for, weekly, and, him actually saying that they'll continue. We'll actually have to listen to that. But then, even as you continue laughing on the same, these particular Maandamanos, as they continue for today, for Thursday, do you think that they are steering away the Kenya Kwanza, drive to actually work on matters development? And right now, President William Ruto is in Germany, to discuss, matters bilateral ties, matters development. But then at the end of the day, do you think that, this Maandamanos happening in his country might also be steering him away from actually not being able to achieve his mandate there?
Well, the Maandamano, ill-advised as they may be, have the effect. Because they are diverting attention from what the government should be doing. Okay? And even the last time, before the handshake, I understand that the government was spending quite a bit of money every month, wondering about what Raila is up to. Something like 100 million or something like that. It's not more money. Yeah? So they felt that they will need to do something so that they can concentrate on what they thought they were up to. So whether Ruto likes it or not, these Maandamano are diverting attention from what he can. Even when he's talking to people out there about his agenda, and somebody will ask, and what's going on there? Then he has to answer that. Yes. That's a diversion. And as we were saying earlier, the opportunity cost that's lost in every way is very high. So they do have an effect. The question is, what is the solution? And that's why I was talking about the dilemma that Ruto finds himself in. And as Prof. Gola says, the issue of acceptability is not the law. Yes, the man won the election fairly. End of this. In the same way that Kibaki won the election in 2007 fairly, despite some people saying that he won very fairly. But the same scenario, it was very close, and it so happened that the same character turned around and said, no, I didn't lose. Huh? And he started bundling things.
Professor, I must add that he's turning around after the fact.
No, that thing has not been properly investigated.
Yes.
The closest we had in investigation was the Kriegler Commission.
Yes.
The closest. Okay? And what did Kriegler say? It was argued that everything was stolen at KICC. And that's why people are jumping up and down. Yeah. Which was not the case. So they investigated. And Kriegler said, anyone who has information, okay, evidence, come. Those who are making the most noise ran away. They did not go to testify because they were scared they would perjure themselves. So they did not do it. In that investigation, Kriegler looked at all the constituencies that were contested, that was said it was done here. And they went through those votes one at a time. All of them. And what was the conclusion? There was no theft at KICC. If there was a problem somewhere else, that's another matter.
Okay.
But not at where?
KICC.
The only thing that probably happened is show that Kevoito was not very good in arithmetic. Because the bad arithmetic denied Kibaki about 40,000 votes. The same bad arithmetic denied Kalonzo about 30,000 votes. And the same
bad arithmetic
denied Raila about 20,000 votes. But it was bad arithmetic. Yeah. Now, if Kriegler was right in his analysis, what does that tell you? Project nationally.
Yeah.
But then that is the closest that we had. Of course, when I speak about this, some people get very angry.
Yes.
The international manipulation was so clear. When Kevoito announced his results, before the election, there used to be what? No Kevoito, no what? No election. In fact, Kevoito was supposed to retire and go home. And we would say, no, we want Kevoito. No Kevoito?
No election.
Assuming that Kevoito was going to announce differently. When it was announced, the British government was very quick. Say we must have power sharing. Say, hey, on what basis?
So do you also in this the 2022 recent elections, you feel like there's a whole... The Kenyan elections are not just Kenyan, they involve other parts. Yeah.
And those forces sometimes can be very funny. And that's why...
And they're the same forces, even in his visit to Germany.
Ruto is out to look for international understanding.
Yeah.
That one is very clear. He does not have the same touch that Uhuru used to have. So he's looking for it and working very hard. How far he will go, we wait to see. But he is doing that.
Okay.
Because he needs that international acceptance as well as domestic acceptance.
All right.
And all that Raila is doing is trying to deny him that.
All right. Prof. Gola, Article 1 states that the sovereign power belongs to the people. But then at the end of the day, and it is one particular article that Azimio allies are really holding on to. Basically, Article 1 and also Article 37, the whole rights to picket, and that, matter sovereign power belongs to the people. But then at the end of the day, where do we draw the line here?
You see, in the Bible, there's what we call religious fundamentalism.
Like the fact that today we are actually
yes, you pick one part of the Bible, then you quote as if that's the only part of the Bible. So there is the rights that you can picket. In fact, Raila was quoting in church yesterday that you can exercise it directly or indirectly, but it's the wrong context. You cannot become president directly, Yes. Because he was saying, if the citizens of Kenya want something, for example, they want to change the constitution, they can go through parliament or they can go through public initiative. That is how it should be read. But if he was saying that we can go to State House now directly. No. You see, there is a way people are sent to State House. So there's misnomer there, and there's some misinformation there. So the other thing which you have to see here, Stanley, Professor, you know very well that when rights clash, have you had women's rights, then human rights, then men's rights, then children's rights? You see, the rights will conflict. So you have a right to picket, you have right for maandamano, somebody has right of peace, somebody has right to do business. Now, somebody has right to live, somebody has right to life. You have right to maandamano, but somebody will die. You see now, when rights conflict, then we start looking at what are the hierarchy of rights now. And then what I'm trying to say here is that's what Azimio needs to really understand, that there's a time when you talk about hierarchy of rights. If someone will die when I have rights to demonstrate, for me, I'll just demonstrate, but I'll go back with my life. But somebody's life will end. So which one should you put on top of the other? That's a question that you can answer yourself. I'm sure all listeners can listen. I always have rights to certain things. But sometimes you rather not exercise your right if it conflicts somebody else's right. So if my right is to go to the street and demonstrate because I've lost an election, but somebody will lose life today, somebody lose a livelihood, will not be able to make money today, where am I rating my rights? And let me tell you what, I like the issue you talk about contested election. Let's learn from Argo.
Yes.
Argo won the popular vote against Bush. It was highly contested. Everybody knew Argo was the president. But he said, well, we leave it. So for me, Raila has a right to picket and to complain of the illegitimate government and to complain for a fair election. But also, he can find in his heart to say, well, at what cost? Sometimes we forgive. In fact, the most intelligent person is always the first one to say, I'm sorry.
And speak of matters, at what cost? So at the end of the day, even on Monday, there were, property looted, a life lost.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Student. At the end of the day, people will be asking matters accountability and, matters the whole.
There's collateral damage as you execute your right. So if the collateral damage is higher than your value, if I lost election, but I'm alive, but I make someone lose their life, that life cannot be reversed. We should not even wait for 4. Life is infinite in value.
So who should be held accountable on and everything?
That's why on our
day and Thursday
yes, for me, when I did a press release, I sent a letter to the president and said, him and Raila are the statesmen here, and the buck stops with them. They should address this issue. Sometimes these guys need to talk. Since the election took place, they have never been seen in public. They have never seen to talk to each other. In fact, that's why I critique his conversation in when he was in Nyanza, because what he was telling people was the wrong audience. He told Raila, my brother, I fought for you. I did this for you. Please, let's have peace. That conversation directed to Raila can melt his heart. For me, these people need to talk. We don't care the outcome which is between them, but Kenyans need to have peace and decorum. And on the other thing that you mentioned here about the issue of diversion of attention. I can tell you what happened in Vatican II when Pope bishops from Africa, all of them flew to Rome to discuss how the richness of African culture can enrich the Catholic Church globally. And when they landed, immediately there was the genocide in Rwanda. So the conversation shifted away from the richness of African culture and said, how can 98% Catholic nation kill each other, which means the same Catholics who tell us are rich in values are killing other Catholics. And I'm sure that the conversation in Germany, the conversation in the trip for the Mr. President will shift. The greeting will start by saying, how is Kenya? And that will be the main issue. That will be the main agenda. Nothing else will go. So I was thinking that when people are in a situation where death can occur and loss of life can take place, tough statements from Inspector General Raila in confrontation with Inspector General, IPOA issuing this statement here and there, the president needs to be here to address. This is more important issue to address, because for me, even if you book a trip, there's a priority. You can't say that you fly to Europe when you are leaving your wife or children at home suffering. According to me, where is the priority? I think the president has left us in darkness. So we don't know whether decision taken today will be done by Rigathi Gachagua or will be done by the Kome, Mr. Kome, Jeffrey Kome. We don't know who is in charge of the nation at the moment, and we don't know whether him being away, he can say, I was not there when this took place. That is something that I think is a little disturbing. And to end the whole thing here is, I think the tone we need to tone down, and we need discussing issues that are affecting Kenyans. And I'm sure that Kenyans, wherever you are listening to me, let us listen to the voice of reason. Any direction, anything you do, now that the president is away, it is like everybody must take personal responsibility. You do really believe it's good to go to the street? If your heart tells you it's not, please don't go. If you know you have something to go and do in the street, please, anything you do, throwing stones, whether it is tear gas, even the policemen, take personal responsibility, so that at least you can secure the nation. Because all these things are rights clashing. When rights clash, another right will be violated, for sure.
And speaking of matters, toning down, Kide, is it just our culture? Because, I mean, look at South Africa. They actually had a peaceful demonstration, and we didn't, hear any casualties there. We actually saw, Malema actually marching with the demonstrators peacefully. There are other countries. Is it just our culture in Kenya to, in case we're told it's demonstrations time, property has to be looted, there has to be, tear gas, there has to be all that. Is it just our culture in Kenya?
I will say this, there is also a historical background to it. Professor Macharia Munene will tell you that in the days of agitation for the repeal of Section 2A, and around that time until the time we get to the 2010, that by and large we had a law enforcement agency that was largely manned by overzealous mandarins. So sometimes they would respond with excessive force against, protesters. And we have seen images of Njoya being clobbered. We have seen images of other people being clobbered. And for a long time, that was the psyche of the law enforcement agencies. But then for some reason, that whole mentality also seeped into the mind of the protesters. So for instance, you've had instances when certain people are saying that maandamano is only maandamano when there is tear gas. So that they believe that the more...
quote unquote, a fresh stock of tear gas.
Yes. So that the more uglier the confrontations, the better the supposedly successful that maandamano is. So let me answer.
Let's take a short break. Hold that thought kindly. We'll definitely right back with you. And keep talking to us on our social media platforms. We're definitely talking about the maandamanos as planned by Azimio leaders, basically for the anti-government protests. This is Morning Cafe. We'll be right back.
The question here.
You are watching TV47, the home of untold stories.
Mount Kenya University takes pride in being an academic giant with some of the best infrastructure, imparting knowledge to the best brains in the country and the region. Our members of faculty are keen to deliver market-driven programs in science and humanities with a keen focus on linkages with relevant organizations. Join us today and train with the best to become the best. Mount Kenya University, unlocking infinite possibilities.
A very small percentage of smart people can protect what the future holds. Would you like to be among them?
Real estate industry is doable.
A best investment in real estate.
At The Realtor, every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m., we show you how to be a smart investor and invest in real estate. You are watching TV47, the home of untold stories.
Is that the one?
Should be downstairs.
There is one downstairs. Yes, straight ahead.
Right, welcome back. This is Morning Cafe, and right about now I want us to listen to a particular soundbite by Azimio leader Raila Odinga, talking about the weekly protests that are set for Monday and Thursday. Let's listen into that. Right, again, do have that particular soundbite for Azimio leader Raila Odinga, who was speaking in Nyamira, I believe, talking about how the Azimio protests will continue without, and actually, telling Inspector General of Police that they are not afraid of him. Let's listen into that.
Sivyo? Sisemani bado iko? Sasa jamaa wanasema mambo mengi zaidi. Lakini nyinyi mlipiga kura kwa dhati kabisa kwa baba, sio? Na sisi sio waenda wazimu. Sisi ni watu ambao tuko na akili timamu. Nyinyi vile vile ni watu ambao kuna akili timamu. Kila mara mmesimamia haki na ukweli. Mmepiga kura vizuri vile inatakikana. Wakenya walienda siku ile wakapiga kura kila mahali. Na sisi tulisema kama tumeshindwa, sisi tutaheshimu ushindi. Lakini sisi hatujashindwa.
There you do have it as leader Raila Odinga speaking in Nyamira, basically saying that the mandamanos are still on, and Kidi, I believe you as you continue making your point. Also, your insights on basically how the kind of body language that leader Raila Odinga had when he was on that shaky stage of Nyamira, donning blue and actually saying that the mandamanos are still on and nothing will actually push them behind. Your insights on the same.
One thing that, of course, as Professor Gola pointed out, is that one thing you can never underestimate is Baba's capacity to self-re-engineer. And if the Maandamano are about big egos, trust me that Baba would win that war hands down. Because Baba can self-re-engineer. Baba has got a support base that would not abandon him in thick and thin. But then number one, there is also the question of closure. So I think that in the interest of the people, because remember I asked that for whom are we then, say, seeking power or public office? Ideally is that we seek public office in the interest of the people, that will better the lives of the people. But I said ideally, because Professor Ogola will tell you that there is what is called politics without romance, that people you put in high office are by and large self-interested individuals who would still perpetuate their self-interest at every point and turn. So that I think that there were a lot of people who would want to be in a hurry to write Baba off. I think that even if we call out Mandamano, we call it out because we think it is not in the best interest of the country, and that we don't think that every problem is a nail that must be responded to with a hammer. That it is time to change tact in the interest of the country and make sure that we can build a more prosperous democracy, as opposed to a democracy that is always on the fringes. Thank you.
And then speaking of matters, changing tact, and even as you say, having each particular leader have changed tact.
Yes.
On one hand, Azimio leader Raila Odinga says, for me, there is no dialogue. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua says the only dialogue we'll have is for your political exit. On the other hand, Inspector General of Police says, I don't want any dialogue as long as you just don't want to hold these particular demonstrations here. Gentlemen, let's talk about, at the end of the day, you all unanimously agree that the Mandamanos are not good for the country. But then we do need, leave alone theoretical, moves and theoretical, moves. We do need practicality here. And the practicality that has been raised is for the two gentlemen, as you were putting it, Prof, to actually sit down.
Call them the principals.
or as Prof. Ogola puts it, the two statesmen.
Yes.
At the end of the day, they really need to sit down and have a dialogue. And not only both of them, even other stakeholders that are involved. For example, the police. Prof. Macharia Munene, everyone here is on basically saying, I don't want a dialogue. What's the move here?
Well, there is a little book which, for 500 years, people read it to understand power. It's called by the Prince, when Niccolo Machiavelli. And it says very clearly, you should know what you want. If you want power, there are two ways. You inherit it or you grab it. Either way. How you get it is not the issue. Now we have a challenge here of players who seem to have read Machiavelli. Raila, I think, has read Machiavelli. So he wants power. All these other arguments are just arguments. At one time, one of the people who claimed to be his diehard supporter said, if there will be blood, if there has to be blood shed for Raila to become president, so be it. Okay? Now, if you have people with that kind of mentality, it's an attitude thing. You have to get that power irrespective of how. So how do you change people from the Machiavellian thinking into something else? Say, start talking about the greater good for the community instead of for the individual. And the call for dialogue is very good. They were dialoguing before, and it's a good thing. The issue is how to convince Raila Odinga that actually he should let Ruto run the country because he was elected, and then figure out on better ways of acquiring power in the future. In the past, he has succeeded very well. There's no question about it. He succeeded in 2008, He succeeded in 2018. Very well. Will he succeed now in 2023? And that's why we are getting a problem, because now the Ruto people are saying no. They have the official legitimacy, the constitutional mandate, whatever it is. But they also need what is calling the social mandate.
Yes, legal social license.
So that as long as there is this tension, because there's no, it's hard to ignore almost half of the voters. I don't want to say population of the voters, because the population is another matter.
Yes.
It's very hard to ignore 6 million people.
On the flip side, Prof, there are talks for the creation of the office of the opposition. It had started when the
that's another nusumkate.
Is it
it's another nusumkate.
Is it dead on arrival right now?
Yes, it is dead on arrival, and I'll tell you why. Because the issue is not another office. The issue is that one office. Who gets it? Now, as long as Raila does not have that office, and he has even said he doesn't want it, okay? You can create all offices and say, oh, winner take all is not good. Those are myths. Because the main thing is who occupies that state house, not how many other offices are there. Yeah? Remember the BBI, the suggestions in the BBI. Yeah, they said they'll create this and this and this. But the main thing was what? The state house, which was going to have a lot of power in firing and hiring people, according to the BBI.
Yeah.
But you create some positions there. And even Ruto, the other day, for a while they looked as if they were thinking together. Create the office of the official leader of the opposition. For a while there was that talk.
Yeah.
And it was clear, give it to Raila. And somebody must have talked to Raila and said, what are you doing? He changed his mind. So he does not want that office, because that office is not the issue. It is who is president. And as long as politicians do not accept the rules of the game, because that's what it is. If they don't accept the rules of the game, you can create all the positions you want. But the debate, the issue will still be there. Who is president?
Right.
Not who is leader of the official opposition.
Prof. Ogola, where should we start when talk about calls for dialogues and the whole conversation? Where should all this even conversation start?
I think, Stanley, as you said before, that and your question, we answered it somehow, but it was during the break that we can't continue mano.
Yeah.
There's fatigue. Fatigue will kick in because the policemen chasing the people, they're also chasing Kenyans, and they're Kenyans. And all we are related. All Kenyans are related. Forget about tribal. All these things are jokes. Do you know what relates us the most? Economy. Economically, we are so connected more than our tribes. And because the economy is dying, whether we are fighting, whether I'm the one fighting you or you're the one fighting me, fatigue will kick in. Secondly, Kenya is not having a lot of what's called food security like Uganda. Uganda can sustain war in the north for long because they have free bananas and whatever. Kenya is not like that. So we don't have the luxury. So fatigue will kick in, so we have to come together. Then the second point I'm trying to say, which is a challenge also maybe to the panel here. People have always said Raila is the same thing. He loses an election, he comes back and says, I didn't lose the election. But there's a question here also you have to ask about this Raila person. How comes you say he's the same person, acts the same way, but he is ever so fresh and new and renewed? This is something you have to understand. Is it magic? There must be something about him, because people say, he's done. Now he's done. Then all of a sudden he emerges, but you say he's the same guy. How can, if he's lying, he lost the election, how can someone tell you a lie 15 times and still is believable? So there must be something about how Raila can be able to bring people around him and engineer himself and work, and maybe a book needs to be written. Professor, we need to write a book. How can someone be so always ever renew and fresh?
Be a researcher.
No, we have to write this book because this is somebody that I think somebody needs to learn about, because I'm sure Arago could not come back again and say this. Trump had to leave office. You see, many people can't do. I think this very interesting.
Trump learned from Raila.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so people say Trump learned from Raila, so there must be something about Raila that needs to be penned down. I'll be very willing to write this book, and I'm sure one day we shall discuss this book. Now, to go to your question, let's look at this way. The issue of handshake or dialogue have taken place. Moi did it alone with Raila without any intervention, external intervention. Yeah. They willingly came back and formed the party together. So that was friendship renewed. Now Kibaki is the next one, and that was in 2013. In 2007, this was international community initiated dialogue which took place. But that was because after the election, there was animosity that international community started visiting Kenya and saying, Kenya is on fire, let us save Kenya. Now, after Uhuru was elected in 2017, he did not use international community. He went and reached out himself directly. Moi was still alive, so you could almost say that Moi told Uhuru, go shake this man. And Kibaki was also alive. So Kibaki must have told Uhuru, if you handle Raila under chaos, you lose. You know, sorry to use this example. When pigs are in mud, and you join pig in a mud battle, I'm sure you are losing. You can't jump into fish and start fighting with fish inside the water. So Raila thrives in this environment.
But then the big question right now would be who will blink first?
Yeah, so I'm trying to say, now I'm coming to 2022. Yes. Now in 2022, what form of dialogue will this be? And I'm thinking that at the moment, remember Stanley, I am the one who was at the epicenter. We were with you in Bomas. You interviewed me in Bomas when the election took place. Immediately after the election, I started the process of amending the constitution. Remember that? So Professor Mnene says here that it may not be a handshake, it may not be creating positions, because the whole idea here is who is in State House. I am thinking that these guys are putting us through 2027 scenario. If these guys can come with a constitutional amendment process on which Raila has a feeling he has a chance to be the president in 2027, if he has that feeling, there will be peace. Right. In fact, when Kibaki handshaked Raila, it looked like this handshake with Raila was preparation for Raila to ascend to power naturally. You understand? That was, in fact, Moi's handshake with Raila was that Raila will ascend naturally. That's why there was peace. The same scenario with Kibaki was that after the handshake, he will be the next president naturally. Then, of course, with Uhuru, it was again with BBI naturally. Ruto has to create the same thing for Raila. Raila will ascend to power naturally. If that is not there, there will be no peace. So Raila wants to be president. Okay. And if you tell him to wait a little bit more, he will be. He'll prefer that than being leader of opposition. Right. And this is the time when you need constitutional amendment. I'm happy that Operation Dogatuzi already has proposed the amendments that will restructure IBC. So the IBC here, when you hear open the server, don't be deceived that they want to open the server. Raila is saying let us look for electoral justice. Let us find a way to cure and prepare for 2027. That's what I'm thinking. And with this, there's a chance that these people can agree. If they agree on a formula on which Raila feels that 2027 election will be free and fair, and Raila believes that in a free and fair election he can win, there it is for you.
I think if I may add there, to agree. Yes, there is this that he has to feel that the Constitution is on his side.
Yes.
You know, that when he joined Moi in 1998, after the 1997 election, from what I read, it was a deal cut between Moi and Raila to change the Constitution so that Moi can continue being president and Raila becomes prime minister and get power. It did not work, so they quarreled. After the 2008 mess and then the new constitution, it was clear that no other person was looking serious. Uhuru and Ruto were looking as if they are going to maybe be given accommodation in Europe. Therefore, not a threat. So it was a sail-in. And then something happened. He did not get it, although that constitution looked as if it was tailor-made for him. It didn't happen. Then you have 2022. Again, it looked at the BBI looked as if it was tailor-made for him.
Yeah.
And then something went wrong. So this idea that we need to recraft the constitution of the system so that it is a sure-in. And the only snag with that is that the unknown. Who is the candidate who is going to come up? Unknown that will take over.
Yeah.
In 2013, Uhuru and Ruto came up riding on the ICC. In 2022, Ruto came up riding on the disgruntlement.
Betrayal.
The sense of betrayal. And they got in. So whatever is crafted, the crafters need to think of the unknown. Somebody is coming up and taking over, although that person was not completed in the craft.
In fact, Prof, if you look at what Raila suggested, something there that even me I disagree with, that election should be devolved. Because he believes that if you devolve elections, the regions, because Raila geographically won, but numerically numbers were not in favor. So can you use the geographical fact of control of the nation to cure the numerical disadvantage that he got in this election? So I'm trying to say that the whole idea here, Raila is talking about the game plan. Stop IBC things, let's amend the constitution. Give me a sign that I'm the next heir to the throne. Right. And of course, that also is because Ruto is still young. He won't go for one-term president, so that's another challenge. Okay. If Ruto was in his second term, this could be an easy prayer to say, Mr. President, my brother, don't worry, my brother. Let me just finish my 5 years, then you'll be there. But you see, Raila can't wait for 10 years.
Kidi, as you chip into what the gentleman talking about, again, the whole question rises again, in your view, who will blink first here?
Before I address myself the question of who will blink first, because that essentially is addressing myself the question of the battle of big egos, let me respond to something that Professor Gola is saying. They needed to amend the constitution. I am one of the people who believe that, yes, after 12 years of experimenting with the Constitution of Kenya 2010, and having seen comments by very senior constitutional experts, including but not limited to Zamba Gitonga, the late former chairman of the COE, that it is time to tweak our constitution to suit our circumstances. What other practitioners like Professor Ben Sihanya have called autochthonous constitutional model. A constitutional model is deemed autochthonous when it suits the unique circumstances, culture, and aspirations of a people. After 40, 50 years of experimenting with the Westminster model, as a country we are more inclined towards a parliamentary system as opposed to pure presidential system. Why am I even in preference of a parliamentary system over presidentialism? It comes to the question of transfer of power. You know, when you look at monarchies, a monarchy as a form of government, you realize that the question of transfer of power does not happen in the streets. Instead, it happens in the palace where they poison one another, they kill one another, while there is general calm in the streets. And I think that is the only form of government that comes close to that system is parliamentarism. That when there is a disagreement, that fight, however vicious it will be, it is fought in parliament. And for a moment, there is a relative calm in the streets. So that today, if we change, say if there was this fight that we are seeing between the Prime Minister and the President, they would be fighting it out in Parliament on who has the numbers. A case in point was in the UK, when you saw Boris leaving. Before Boris, it was May left, Boris left, then Liz left, and then soon Rishi came in. So yes, I think that it is time that we amend our constitution to suit our unique standards, circumstances. I don't think that pure presidentialism was meant for us. And also, if you look at advanced democracies across the globe, you realize it is only the UK, the US, that has got a pure presidential. But even with a pure presidential, it has got a lot of power has been taken to the states in the spirit of subsidiarity. If you're to look at the states and compare in the US and compare it with our counties, these two professors will tell you that our counties, as presently delineated, are too small to make both economic and political sense. Economic sense, that is why you see Jumuiya ya counties of Pwani, you see LREB, you see all manner of counties coming together. Because in their wisdom, they've realized that counties as presently delineated are too small to make economic sense. The other thing I will tell you, the question of representation. Let me make this point. Sorry.
Before you continue that, we have a reporter, Sharon Baranga, on the other side in Moyabe Primary School. Just update us before we actually continue.
Sure thing.
What is happening in real time?
Thank you.
Sharon Baranga, very good morning to you. It is Monday. Weekly protests for this particular week have begun this particular day. What is the situation wherever you are right now?
All right. Thank you, Stanley. We are currently at Moi. It is a few minutes past 9 a.m. and as you can see around me, there is simply no life at Moi Avenue Primary School. On a normal day, we will have a number of students just playing around or going about their normal activities in classes. But currently, we don't have any student who turned up in school on a day that had been marked as one of those days that we are going to experience protests that have been organized by the Azimio Brigade. And now I'm joined by one of the security guards from Moi Avenue Primary School, who's going to just paint for us a picture of what is currently happening at this school. Karibu sana. Unaweza kujitambulisha wewe ni nani, kisha tueleze kama kuna wale watoto ambao wamefika shuleni hii leo.
Kwa majina naitwa Sylvester Nyanza. Mimi ni security hapa kwa shule. Ndio.
Labda kutoka asubuhi, kwa kawaida wanafunzi wanafika hapa saa ngapi, na kama kuna wale wanafunzi ambao waliweza kufika hapa?
Kwa kawaida wanafunzi wanafika hapa kuna wengine wanafika saa 11:30 kwa sababu kuna wengine wanakuja na wazazi wakienda kazi saa 12 hivyo. Lakini kwa leo sijaona hata mwanafunzi mmoja.
Labda kuna ujumbe ambao mliwapa wazazi wasiweze kuleta wanafunzi siku hii, ama wazazi wenyewe waliamua tu hawatawaleta wanafunzi?
Kiukweli hakuna mzazi wote amepewa ripoti wasilete watoto shuleni. Sisi tumeshtuka tu kuona kwamba hakuna mtoto, na hii ni kama wazazi, unajua hii shule kwa wazazi wengi wanakuja na watoto shule, wakienda kazi wanakuja na watoto. Sasa mimi naona ni kama wazazi hawajakuja kazi, wameona hata watoto wao pia wasikuje shuleni. Lakini hakuna mwalimu ameambia watoto wasikuje. Yes. Asante.
Okay, asante sana Sylvester. That was Sylvester, one of the security guards at Moi Avenue Primary School. Earlier on, I had talked to the deputy head teacher of the school, and she told me that some of the teachers actually called in and said they were unable to get matatus to get to this place, and so some of them have been stranded in their homes. Currently, very few teachers are at the vicinity of the school. A number of students came in and they left to their parents after they noticed that a number of other students were not in class, and so the place has just been all activities have ground to a halt because normal activities are not happening as compared to other schools that are not within the Nairobi Central Business District. And if we can just talk to Chebet, my colleague, we are just going to move just outside the gate for you to have a clear picture of what is currently happening outside, because Moi Avenue Primary School is right at just along the Moi Avenue Street, which is one of the most busiest streets across Nairobi. And I'll just give you a clear picture of what is currently happening. Outside the school, we normally have a parking space that has a number of activities that is happening. We have matatus plying this route, but you'll find that most of them are not there. Most of them are not there, and it's mainly because some of the people are scared of what is going to happen once the protests begin around the CBD. So outside here, as you can see, this is the Moi Avenue street. You can see it is very bare. There are no people. There's no life currently happening. We have a very few people around the street, around Moi Avenue Street. On that other side, you can see some of the officers manning the Jubilee, the Jivanji Gardens, the Jivanji Gardens. We have a few officers just stationed there, and Jivanji is one of the most iconic places in Nairobi, because that is where we have the Bunge la Wananchi, or Citizens Parliament. Basically, you'll just find people crowded together, discussing political issues that are affecting the country. But currently, no one is at Jivanji Gardens. No one is at Jivanji Gardens. We have no matatus here. We only have police officers manning this street, and very, very few businesses have opened up, because most of them just stayed away from Nairobi in general, because they are scared of what might happen in case protests or activities that happened last Monday happen again from within the Nairobi. Back to you, Stanley.
The situation, as reported by Sharon Beranga, who is in the Moi Avenue Primary School. And gentlemen, as you're taking a look at those particular live pictures there, the new students, the new pupils in Moi Avenue Primary School, just a tip of the iceberg in how the situation is, how it has affected the education sector. And it is, turning out and panning out to be a replica of Monday's elections, where, students had actually come to the schools, and around midday, some was sent, away. In some schools, were told, don't actually report. I believe you, as you're making your point,
yes,
and you can continue. Even as you chime in on the same, how what the kind of live updates we're actually receiving.
Well, I will speak about, of course, how this is affecting the education levels, how that affects the country's preparedness as an economic giant, or as a country that wants to integrate itself successfully in the League of Successful Nations. Because education levels, how pupils and students score in certain subjects, say maths, how they're able to, and sciences, determine the quality of the workforce that then a country has at the end of the day. But before I go there, I was speaking about the question of representation, and why I think that what Professor is saying about the need to amend the Constitution is timely. I will give an example with the Luo Nyanza. When you are in Migori, Homa Bay, not Luo Nyanza, in Nyanza, Homa Bay, Kisii, Nyamira, Kisumu, and Siaya, the issues in those regions are cross-cutting. But you realize that every county has got an assembly. So it means that there is a lot of duplication of roles. What the county assembly is doing in Homa Bay is precisely what the county assembly in Migori is doing. So the question is, why can't we use the wards as presently delineated as units of development, and use constituencies as presently delineated as units of representation, so that instead of having counties, assemblies in all those counties, have them meet in Kisumu, so that we have the MCAs from Siaya, from Kisumu, from Homa Bay, from Kisii and Nyamira, all meeting in Kisumu, discussing matters of that region, right? Right.
At the end of the day, the residents there and the leaders would ask. It is sort of tiresome. It is, that means that a lot of money will have to again be used on the same. It takes longer for the same.
Another
county. So, well, we see one thing about the mere fact that we are here also is an incentive enough to speak boldly in a manner that can steer this country into the right direction and in a small measure realign it with its highest ideals. So that we need a government that is efficient.
Okay.
Efficiency does not also mean that people must be made to feel good about themselves.
Okay.
So some of these issues, you deal with the professor here, Professor Macharia Munene. You look at the counties in the mountain region, Murima, and you realize that issues in Kirinyaga are the same issues in Muranga, the same issues in Nyandarua. So that instead of having small county assemblies, if you are able to bring these people together, say in Nyeri, they'll be able to discuss matters affecting all that area, and in that way, we would do away with a lot of money that is expended in maintaining the MCAs, for instance.
Right.
So to that extent, I think that it is time we review the Constitution so that we set up a Constituent Assembly as it was, we were directed by the Supreme Court, that then we'll be able to have these issues properly litigated so that the people of Kenya can make a decision on if they want the county assemblies maintained as they are, or we need to elevate them, or to tweak them, or do something in that regard.
Right.
Now, let me respond to the question of how the maandamano. I have said
in about 45 seconds, we have to take a short break.
Okay.
In the next 1 minute.
Yes, I think that this maandamano presently is hurting everyone. It is hurting our children. We certainly wouldn't want our children to be caught in the crossfires between the protesters and the police. So I think that we must laud the parents who has kept the children at home, because it is better to err on the side of caution than to be sorry. Thank you.
Right, and let's take a short break. When we come back, I want us to get into matters, Raila and Kome. First off, that was seen yesterday. Each party, throwing jabs at each other, and the fact that we do have your own security expertise. We'll actually get to hear that. After this particular short break, we'll be listening to what Inspector General of Police Japheth Kome was saying yesterday. Keep it, TV47.
You are watching TV47, the home of untold stories. Located in the heart of Thika, the Mwai Kibaki Convention Center offers stunning views of the city's skyline and is easily accessible from all major transportation hubs. Our facility features ample parking, free Wi-Fi, advanced audiovisual equipment, and our technical team is always on hand to ensure your event runs smoothly and seamlessly. Don't take our word for it. Make your next event unforgettable at the Mwai Kibaki Convention Center. Contact us today for bookings and reservations. email multimedia@mku.ac.ke or call us on 0708 212204 or 0727 441733 or 0721 438 629 to learn more about our services and book your event.
You are watching TV47, the home of untold stories.
Mtu ile kazi hufanya, kama ni kwenda shambani, kwenda ofisini, kwenda kwa duka lake, soko, ama jambo lolote ambalo ndilo tegemeo lake. Wakenya wote waende kazi kesho. Niko na maofisa wenzangu hapa, all the service commanders. Labda yule yuko ni DCI kwa sababu alikuwa kule Mombasa. Tuko tayari. Sisi ni kuhakikishia nchi yetu ni tulivu na salama. Every corner of this country is secure and safe. Kuna watu wachache ambao wamejaribu kutisha na labda kusema kwa lugha ya Kimombo, intimidating fellow Kenyans. This is our country, all of us. Si zote hii ni nchi yetu, whether mtu mdogo ama mtu mkubwa, either kwa utajiri ama kwa mwili, sisi tuko sawa. Hii ni nchi yetu, na ningependa kuuliza Wakenya wote wafurahie kuishi, furahia kuwa kwa nchi yako ambaye Mungu alikupa. Tumesikia wengine wanasema sijui hata kesho wataleta vurugu jiji la Nairobi. Hakuna jambo kama hilo litafanyika. Tuko tayari kama kikosi cha polisi kuhakikisha kuna utulivu kwa nchi nzima, na kwanza jiji letu la Nairobi. These politicians crossed the line in Kisumu wakati walivamia a function ambayo ilikuwa ya CAK, Communication Authority of Kenya. Wakavamia, chakula ikaibiwa, wanaanza kuvunja cutlery, kuharibu mali. That is where they crossed the line. Tukasema, we have been restraining ourselves. We cannot do that anymore. We must come out as a police service to ensure law and order is maintained. So huo ndio ujumbe natoa pale kwa kila mtu asikie. Kesho jaribu, utakiona. Whoever you are, I'll deal with you.
Those are just particular sentiments by Inspector General of Police, Japhet Kome. Professor, I'll start with you on this. I believe, for the many hats that you do wear, you also wear a security expert hat. Listening to the police force, number one, he talks about referring to the DCI, gap, quote unquote, the fact that they actually posted photos of demonstrators, and they were saying they'll actually look for them. So the former Nairobi police commander says that we will actually have on cameras and take photos. He says that today everything should go to normal, but then we're hearing schools, students are actually not going to schools. What does this speak on matters the police preparedness?
Yeah, first of all, you saw in the CBD showing the police presence. Stanley, the police presence anywhere in this country displays insecurity rather than the security part. I'm sure if you leave the estate and you see policemen walking around with the guns, will you feel secure or will you feel insecure? So the fact that we are being told the policemen will be everywhere, already we are being told there is no security, because the country can be secure without the policemen being very visible. And I'm sure Kenyans, wherever you are, you see more visibility of the police today more than yesterday, and that does display there's some form of insecurity. Also, insecurity is about a feeling. It's not about being secure or not. Do you feel secure to go to town today? Do you feel secure to do your business audition? Do you feel secure to go to work? Do you feel secure to go to school? So, insecurity should not be seen only from the point of view that there are policemen around with guns. Security can be managed even without no police. For example, why is it that in Kibera there was no many policemen and nothing was really happening that was advanced, but in town, then there were many policemen and there were more things happening which were against security. So what I'm trying to say is that the state can manage security without that. But for me, give me this chance to respond to Kobe directly. I think that he needs to read the Constitution because it is very clear that people have rights to picket, people have rights to mandamano. Even if it goes against other rights, there's a right there. Now, what his challenge now is he should just provide security, maintain law and order. That is his work. His work is not to preach to Kenyans on how to go to mandamano, whether to go or not. That is not. It is provided for in the Constitution. Stanley, me and you know that in as much as mandamano can hurt people, mandamano has also achieved a lot. Even to have this TV station here for us to speak the way we are speaking, then you enter your car and go home. Without mandamano, that was impossible. So mandamano has achieved things. It has given us the constitution we have. It has given us freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and many other freedoms we are enjoying. At the same time, mandamano has come in a lot of pain. And at the same, what I'm saying, there should be a balance between those two things, and Kobe should just ensure that there is peace and security, law and order. He has no right to preach to anybody else because those sentiments he mentioned yesterday, and there was a bit of confrontation between Raila Odinga and then even I also
Mother Karua.
And Mother Karua, those exchanges we should not be having because we need to make this country where institutions and functions of government do their work and everybody sticks to their lane.
Right.
Raila has the right to organize mandamano. Policemen have the right to protect the protesters and those who are not protesting. And then everybody should abide by the law. This year needs to give us the right image of what's happening in the country, not to mislead the country. News reporters like us, analysts, need to tell Kenyans the truth. So if everyone does their part works, and I think America taught us one thing. When Trump was trying to hold into office, the military told him that we are swear allegiance to the Constitution, not to individual.
I'm being advised to engage Professor Munene so that you can sort your audio for a bit. Prof. Munene, you're listening to IG Kome, speaking, and the whole exchange of words between him and also Azimio leader Raila Odinga and NAC leader Mother Karua. What do you read into this? Should they be having such kind of?
No, it's very unfortunate for the IG.
Okay.
He needs to be reserved in his statements. He needs to do his work, not to talk. His statement elicited reaction, and it was not necessary for him to do that. So when Raila and Martha then find it comfortable to respond to him in very tough language, he brought it on himself. It was not necessary for him to do that. But he's not the only one who is guilty of hearing his own voice, the other people. And that's the mistake they've been making. They talk too much instead of delivering it. So Kome, as the IG, has an obligation to maintain law and order. Anyone who breaks the law, he did not have to say that. Anyone who breaks the law, get them arrested. Don't talk about it. You broke the law, you did this and this and this, end up. But to stand there in public and say, what's the point of this grandstanding? It creates the wrong atmosphere.
But then do you think it was important for him to address such kind of issues? Because even
no, it was not necessary.
He was referring to the incident in where
it was not necessary.
Attacked the communications authority.
No, it was not necessary.
Okay.
No, it was not necessary. That's why when people like hearing their voices, there's a problem. Because sometimes they go overboard. And he was vigilant, actually very rough. Say, Mtaniona. You know, so what kind of language is that? You know, yes, some people mess up. Arrest them. Don't talk about it, just do it. And the police, they have a spokesperson, isn't it? Maybe that's the one who should be saying some things, you know, for the operational purposes. So I think he made a mistake. He's not the only one who has made mistakes. We have had even the DP Gachagua making mistakes of utterances that raise questions rather than give confidence. So the IG made a mistake. And because he made a mistake, it encouraged Raila and Martha to hit him and hit him hard. In that, such that even if he had a point, that point is lost somewhere in the argument that they have a right to demonstrate, which is true. But they don't have a right for people to break the law. Okay. You know, that balance, he should have kept quiet, and then somebody who breaks the law, kuja.
This is me protecting Kenya. This is me protecting you. As you come in,
yes.
You know, looking at Monday's demonstrations, yes. There was a heavy security presence in the central business district, in its environs, in other parts of the country. Yes. Then, in your view, do you feel like the security operators were actually ready for the demonstrations? Because even you know, as earlier alluded, they said that you know, these demonstrations are illegal according to Nairobi Police Commander Adamson Bungei, and he said that, you know, Azimio and also the Nairobi business community had presented you know, the wish to have the demonstrations late, which is, you know, against the law. So were they really ready for these demonstrations?
First and foremost, thank you very much for protecting me against my two senior brothers. I would say this, that I think the Attorney General, the office of the AG, has got its work cut out for it. And Speaker Justin Muturi must act with speed and disabuse government officers of certain notions that are synonymous with the old bygone era. Say, when police officers were law unto themselves. For instance, it is a misnomer when Bungei was imagining that the protesters should have gone to seek permission from him. A cursory, and I'm using the word cursory deliberately, reading of the law says that the only obligation the protesters have is to notify the police. And the police, once notified, have got an obligation to provide security, because there are protesters here, and then there are businessmen whose businesses must also be protected. So that, yes, I think that is something that even the Inspector General needs to disabuse himself of. And as Professor Munene says, that, you know, it was unnecessary to come out and just thumping and saying that anyone who breaks the law will meet his wrath. Because again, the question is, what happened to the wisdom of working in silence? Because I think that if, of course, I assured the country is secure, and that everyone goes through his business unperturbed, that was just enough. To appear to be just thumping in itself is an act of provocation, in my view. Because remember that this was coming when, just 12 hours earlier, there was a tweet attributed to one of the cabinet secretaries who was alluding that they will deal with political dissidents the same way Museveni and other dictators around have been dealing with dissidents. I mean, with people who disagree with government. I do not know if the word dissident is appropriate. I am cautious not to fall into, to be caught in the crossfires of these two camps. Mm-hmm. So that was unnecessary. And I think part of what we need to always remember, especially as public officers, is the need to conduct ourselves with grace. Even if you're the Inspector General, there is how, when you conduct yourself with grace, when you speak with grace, it disarms. So I think that was unnecessary. And I think, but then I also think that I must also hasten to add this, that during the last Monday's demonstrations, there was a lot of restraint on the part of the police. So that, for instance, Nairobi, which was the epicenter of the demonstrations, it must be noticed, we must take notice that there were no casualties. That was work well done. It is something that I hope they continue, that we do not see the overzealousness we witnessed in 2017 during the People's Assemblies, when, you know, we were seeing Kenyans being shot at and shot fatally almost every day. Thank you very much.
Despite the fact that, you know, they say that about 13, I think, police officers were injured, you know, the fact that one dead, still we did have casualties.
Yes. And we send our sympathies to the officers who are hurt in the line of duty.
Okay.
It is not the Kenya we wished for them. We hope that we will get to a point where we will be able to resolve political differences diplomatically and through the institutions of democracy.
And speaking of matters resolving, let me now give you this particular chance, Prof. Ogola.
Yes.
You know, speaking about matters mending, you know, the relationship between the police and basically the citizens. You're alluding to a fact where, you know, you walk out of your estate and you find maybe, you know, a count head of maybe 7, you know, berets, you know, standing outside, you know, your estate where you normally go to, you know, buy milk. So, you know, basically speaks of, as a Kenyan, do you feel safe, or, you know, you'll actually, you know, just pass and greet them, or you'll actually be tensed and, you know, like, we're not leaving the house. You know,
Yeah.
so that particular, the whole relationship. Last week on Monday, I was on the field, and I can actually, you know, tell you for a fact that, you know, some citizens, some Kenyans will be arrested, and at the end of the day, they will lament that I was just caught on the crossfires here. And the relationship between, you know, how they couldn't actually, you know, talk to the police and, you know, explain themselves. So it was, you know, a whole lot of, you know, just being arrested and being put on the Land Rovers and taken to the police station. How do we mend this, Prof?
Yeah, first of all, there are 2 levels of education. First, citizens need to be educated on how to do maandamano. And in fact, why I was trying to raise my hand, I was trying to say that we need some civic education on how to do maandamano, and it was a lost opportunity for both Raila Odinga, the leader of the Azimio, and Martha Karua, and also Mr. Kome, to get that moment and say, how should we behave tomorrow? I'm thinking that could have been a better thing to talk about by saying, Kenyans, tomorrow there'll be maandamano. It is your right to do it. If you want to participate, do it this way. Rather than, if you do, you'll see me. And in fact, what I'm trying to say here is that as the leader of police, the Commissioner General of Police, he's done something which is totally wrong. You can't break the law by telling people not to break the law, by saying, you are breaking the law by going against their rights to maandamano. At the same time, you are telling them not to do maandamano that is against the law. You see, as a leader, it calls upon you to lead with decorum. It means more responsibility. The more power you have, like you're going fist stamping, with great power comes more responsibility. He could have not tried to break the law because everybody disagrees with him, that anybody who is reasonable disagrees with him that this was not supposed to be said the way he said it. We have written a letter, even asking Kenya National Human Rights Commission. We are asking all civil society bodies that are concerned about human rights to reach out. In fact, we want to go even to look if there's any legal means to tell the Commissioner of Police that this was wrong and that he should confess. Actually, he should be able to apologize to Kenyans. And the DCI, who published bad photos, apologized to Kenyans. For us, we think that he owes Kenyans apology to at least start healing the relationship between the police and the citizens. Because let me tell you what we talk about security. The more the police collaborate with the citizens, the more there will be security. But the more there is antagonism, we versus them, the more we have no security. Because I can tell you, when I was doing my studies abroad, when you got lost, the most trusted person to ask is the police. They know every place. Like, I was looking for a hospital. Can you show me this hospital? I'll show you here. Go this street, walk 10 meters, turn left, turn right. In Kenya, if you get lost and you see a policeman, will you go to the policeman to ask for them for direction? No. First of all, mostly they don't know. And then secondly, normally they'll think you're confronting them. You might even end up being arrested for trying to ask the policeman, can you show me where I can go to hospital? Yet we talk about community policing. Where did we lose the community policing aspect? Because it was actually helpful. Nyumba Kumi, all those things were means and ways. We should collaborate with the security apparatus to ensure Mandamano is done in conformance with the Constitution and law, and to ensure there's civility. The other thing I wanted to bring about is that if you look at the way the leaders we're having are answering each other in the media, you know, we have children, we have vulnerable people watching. When they take over those offices, they do the same. And this is not the way to educate a society. When will Kenyan society actually advance? Because when we are seeing these guys answering each other this way, we are not seeing any good example from any side. There's no siding with anybody. And of course, more importantly, to tell Mr. Comey, you have to know that that position you are sitting on, somebody was there yesterday.
Yes.
And that person, things change. When you are in any regime, you have to know very well that you go with that regime. This regime of William Ruto is not going to be there. Moi's regime went. Kibaki's regime went. Uhuru's regime went. This regime gone. Can you imagine former Minister for Internal Security being arrested, even going to look for cash bills? Now, a former Minister for Internal Security and Commissioner General of Police, who is more senior. So those words you said, someone will go to court when administration changes, and he will answer them. So what I'm trying to say, I'm not trying to warn him or threaten him. What I'm trying to say is that tomorrow when you wake up, say something. If Kenyans just woke up and said, let me say something, I'll be comfortable even if it's put on the front page. And I can't be ashamed of it tomorrow. My children and children's children cannot be ashamed of it.
Right.
I'm sure we shall have civil ways on how to do things. Mandamano is Azimio's right. A policeman should provide security, and any other apparatus. And I'm trying to say that even for us to be here, I told you earlier, if Parliament did their work, it's a failure of other institutions, not just policemen. Parliament did not debate, because I saw a debate there, it was just insulting each other in Parliament. You saw people saying, what is our statement as Parliament and position in this Mandamano? You see the guys, for example, religious leaders, they went so quiet in the middle of the utterances between these other leaders we have in the Gachagua has made a statement, that deputy president, namely respect him. The president made a statement about it. We saw the security officers doing it, Azimio leaders doing it. Someone needs to come and say, please, we are Kenyans, we cannot fight against each other. I remember during Professor Mnene, there was this terrorism in Somalia. And Kibaki made a statement. Kenya cannot develop when we are having attack from terrorists, Al-Shabaab. Okay. So we have to go to war for that. Now we are warring against ourselves to kill our own economy. Tourists can't come, foreign direct investors cannot come. We are losing opportunity fighting over and among ourselves. There is no one who is our enemy. We are our own enemy. Why don't we find these ways on how to solve our issues in a good way, okay, and ensure that we can bring our country back to path of success?
Prof, as you add to that,
yeah.
Let's go back to 2018 and even last week on Monday. What are the lessons that we need to pick, from the relationship between the police and the citizens? How to mend this relationship and how the workforce of the police is conducted.
We need a lot of public education, not just to the police, but also to the public. It is true that there are people who behave in roguish ways. In a peaceful situation, they are not happy if there is no chaos. Now, figuring out what to do with those people, because they are there. And if they are not dealt with, we can talk all we want. Second, the police are different. There are some police officers who are extremely good and very courteous, extremely. And though my friend here says, you see them, you want to run away, it's not always the case. Because there are situations you want, something is happening, you go to the police, and often, my experience now, say this and this, most of them will be very kind to show you the way, or to tell you, to give you some sort of what? An answer. Yes, there are those roguish police in your car, they are busy trying to find fault where there is no fault. Eh? they are there. And they give people a very bad impression about the police. But there are then those very good people who go out of their way to help you. I've had that one time, a long time ago. It happened. We had a car that we were stopped. When we were stopped, then it said check, and then it said go, and the car refused to go. So the police was there helping to push the what? And he was an inspector. He said, now this is different from the way we know what? Because they say, now we know these things happen. So there are different types of police. The bad ones give the police a bad image. And if they have leaders who also give the police a bad image, we have a problem. Eh? Sometimes the police are very good in solving problems that we don't know. They are good. There was a time when the matatus were going on strike, countrywide. And one police officer, from what I understand, decided to call the leaders of the matatus. And they reached an agreement. You want to strike, and I don't want chaos. So if you want to strike, leave your cars, don't bother. But if you interfere with anybody else, I will come. Okay? That's conflict resolution. Eh? They understood each other. So those who are going to strike left their car, they didn't. And those who wanted to, of course, generally there was no car movement. Eh? But there was that understanding, don't stop somebody else from doing what has to. So there are those police officers who are thinking, and they have the interest of the country at heart. And there are those that are real something else. Right. The challenge to the country and to IPOA is how to weed out the ones who give the police a bad image. Okay. How to deal with the people who are bent on creating chaos, and the police have to respond. How to deal with that is another matter. The other day, the governor of Kisumu, Peter Nyanza, he was virtually crying. Because ordinarily he would have been on the other side of the maandamano. But now he is the governor. It is his county. And it was destroyed. So he was there crying, what are you doing? And that in itself could resonate. Think again before you start doing strange things that destroy instead of build, even as you undermine. Okay. Yeah.
And because of time, I want us to wrap up this particular conversation. And there's a particular it's comment plus a question. I think you can take a look at this and handle this. So Angana Mela on Facebook says, you can always talk to us on our Facebook page, TV47 Kenya. He says about Comey and the group, it's unfortunate people who are enforcing the law are ignorant about the law. This constitution that Ruto didn't want, he will destroy it. How do you swear in people when there's a case in court? Question mark. Even as you chime into mending the police and the citizens relationship, and the kind of lessons that we picking up from 2018 during the Tear Gas Monday and last week's Monday, you can help Kenyans understand this. Your expert advice.
Essentially, the journey towards trying to make the police people-centric and people-friendly was a long and torturous journey. I think, considering that we have the advantage of having two professors on this panel, they will tell you that that journey was a long one. You remember when Major Hussein Ali was appointed as Commissioner of Police after Nyanza had been kicked by Kibaki. He came and attempted to call the National Police, the service then, when it was a force. And then there were protests that it cannot be a force in name only. I mean, in a service in name only. That if you want to call the National Police a service, do it substantively. Change how it relates with the members of the public. Change some of those attitudes I was calling overzealous. the ones like you will face me. Because for a long time, Kenyans viewed the police as their enemy. But then so much ground has been covered, including but not limited to the work done by during the vetting of the police by Kavulundi and the NPSC. But then one thing about the body of work, as President Barack Obama will tell you, that it never ends. It deepens and expands. So the work of making the police service more people-centric and making sure that they have got a good relations with the public cannot be a work that we would say that we have finished it or that we can end it. It is a work that will continue as long as we have the Republic of Kenya and with the citizens that has a police service. And yes, so I think that you must embrace attitudes that the two professors are saying that is more gracious, that is less confrontational, that assures even those who are not pro-government that there is a police force paid by police service paid by their taxes that will guarantee their security and safety. Because one thing you realize that the biggest dilemma all police services encounter in moments as tense as this is the delicate balance between human rights, which is more often threatened, and security. I mean, which is more often denied, and security, which is more often threatened. I will repeat. Human rights is often denied, while security is often threatened. So usually the police service are constantly struggling to strike a delicate balance. We know that the Inspector General, especially now, is having a lot of pressure. And we will, considering all that we have said, I think that I will still continue commending him for the work he did last week. I hope that he does that again, that we try as much as possible to avoid casualties. Because as Professor Gola said, that the value of life is infinite. And one life lost, I will add, is one life too many. We do not want to lose our people in the hands of the law enforcement agencies.
Right.
Thank you.
And because of time, I think we have around 9 or 8 minutes to wrap it up. And it's pertinent to have, for your last words, gentlemen, where is the backstop finally? Even as we're talking about the whole end game, but then at the end of the day, Kenyans would want peace, so that even the businesses do not be looted. Where does the buck stop at the end of the day? I'll start with you, Prof. Gola.
In this way, the buck stops with two people. I'm sure some people are saying the buck stops with the president, but not only him. Mm-hmm. The bucks on organizing Mandamano stops Raila Odinga. What will be the damage? How far does he want to go before he can say, we live to fight another day? And it's a compromise. People are saying that this is the prince of poverty, this is the king of violence. And I can see Kenya Kwanza portraying him like that in the social media. Does he want to have that image? Can he come back and say, guys, I want this election, but let's have peace. And with that, these are my minimum conditions. Could we go and amend the constitution to create a way on which this electoral justice do not happen again? Because let me tell you what, he's lost election enough. There have been enough electoral justices, if at all anything to says is go by. It's happened enough. And is this one, can we go for a process on which other people's life can continue as they sort out their other issues in some of the constitutional framework allowed? For example, he has also a right to go and amend the constitution. Can he exercise that instead? The other thing, the president. The buck stops with you, and actually the bigger buck stops with you. I don't know if there's such a thing. Because of the fact that as we are doing Mandamano, you are losing money. Today, you lose 6 billion shillings across the country. If you lose it twice a year, that will be 276 billion shillings 576 billion shillings by the end of the year, because if you lose 6 billion per day, if you do that for a whole year, if we continue until the end of the year, that's the money you're going to lose. What can that 576 billion shillings do for Kenya in terms of cost of living? So the cost of living is a fact, economical fact, cannot be solved with maandamano. If anything, it derails it. Okay. Because if you don't collect this money today, today is gone. You cannot bring tomorrow. You cannot bring this today and fast forward it. It's gone.
Okay.
And that one is lost. So we are losing more opportunities towards solving the main problem we are trying to solve. For electoral justice, as far as I'm concerned, the president is in State House. In State House, he went through there, no matter how you say there was injustice, but they followed procedure, which is right. I'm not in IBC server. I don't know how servers look like, isn't it? But I know that for sure, that is a gone story. How can we come back again and rebuild Kenya from where we begin? And then lastly, Kenyans, the buck also stops with you. Because the person who's going to throw a tear gas, the person who's going to throw a stone, the person who's going to steal somebody's property is still a Kenyan. So let us not just put this into leaders. Also, we must be led as Kenyans, follow the constitution, and bring peace in Kenya.
Right. Because of time again, you were talking about which you don't know how the server looks like. I'm reminded of Jikome yesterday saying who server ni mnyama gani. But then because we're really short of time, Prof, there's someone here says Bundi Munya kweli kabisa, Prof, regarding you saying about these demos are good for Raila, but then not for the nation. Your last words in 30 seconds, because you're really out of time. Your parting shots. Where does the buck stop?
It stops with the president, William Ruto. Nobody else.
Okay.
And this is where he needs to show his skills on managing the political economy of the country. Everything else is subsidiary to that, including Raila.
Okay.
So how he manages, the buck stops with him.
Right.
Yeah.
Your 30 seconds.
I will give you a story. In 1984, when Omamo Kaliech was elected MP for Bondo, Jaramogi, while speaking to the people of Bondo constituency then, told them that whether Omamo Kaliech has gone to parliament through the window or through the back door, but he is now the MP, we must give him a chance to serve the people of Bondo.
Okay.
I wish that Baba could say that again.
Okay.
In the here and the now, in the interest of the people of Kenya. Thank you very much.
Right. Kidi Moga, policy expert, Professor Masharia Munene, political historian, and quite a lot of hats there. Professor Fred Ogola, policy expert, political expert as well, and also many hats on top. Thank you, gentlemen, for making time. It is much appreciated. Thank you for the wise words that you have actually, given us. I believe I can take a look at one particular comment right here. Then we actually, call it a day. Let me see if I can have it. Yeah, Callistus Wafule says picketing is a right. You need no permission either. You only notify the police so that they can direct the traffic elsewhere, not to permit you. Ask yourself, should a dictator rise to power? Will you suffer silently for 10 years? Let people picket. The law is clear. That is Callistus Wafule on Facebook. You can always talk to us on our social media pages. This particular